Israel Adesanya versus Jared Cannonier takes place this weekend in the main event of UFC 276, and I can't wait for this matchup for the middleweight world championship. Israel Adesanya, the champion of the middleweight division, attempts to make another successful title defense against a very dangerous contender in Jared Cannonier. Now, I understand this is not the most anticipated Israel Adesanya matchup that he's had, because Jared Cannonier kind of flies under the radar. He doesn't really talk too much. He doesn't really promote himself that well. I mean, his call out after his win against Derek Brunson was an amazing call out, so that really worked and that got me hyped up. However, of course, we've had Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz. We've had Israel Adesanya and his bad blood with Marvin Vettori, and that got heated in the build-up as well. We've had the rematch with Robert Whittaker, and everyone knows how good Robert Whittaker is because he even has a win over Jared Cannonier recently. He was the last guy, and I believe only guy in the middleweight division to hold a win over Jared Cannonier, and that win has aged very well for Robert Whittaker indeed. But Jared Cannonier has bounced back. He beat Derek Brunson. He beat Kelvin Gastelum. He had an okay performance against Kelvin. Wasn't the best in all honesty, but Kelvin can be tough for a lot of people. I mean, Whittaker really did school him and teach him a lesson, but like Adesanya even had problems with that style of Kelvin Gastelum. But I do believe that maybe Kelvin hasn't been the same since that 5th round against Israel Adesanya, because you know, Israel really did put him down, I believe, 3 times over and over again in that 5th round, and Kelvin took a lot of damage there, a lot of concussive damage for a guy who's already taken a lot of blows in his career. For Israel Adesanya, he barely got touched up until that moment, so for him to take that type of damage, that's not going to be like the straw that broke the camel's back, but for Kelvin, it could have been. But Kelvin looked good against Jared Cannonier on short notice. And that is a bit of a worry here if you're looking for Cannonier to be able to outpoint Israel Adesanya over the 5 rounds. However, I would say that Jared Cannonier has a potential to win in a way that is perfect for an upset win. Okay? If you're picking Whittaker to beat Adesanya in that rematch, you might be thinking Whittaker might be able to catch him, but maybe he'll outpoint him over 3 rounds. And, you know, a lot of people seem to think that happened, including the scoring criteria of MMA. But Jared Cannonier has the ability to not just leave it to the judges in a very close fight, which, you know, they might side with Israel Adesanya on, just because he's a dominant champ, he's a big star for the company, so they're going to be a little bit more in his favour if they're going to be in anyone's favour. But for Jared Cannonier, he's got a chance to put Israel Adesanya out cold with a big punch. I just don't see it happening. That's a great way to try and find an upset, and if you are looking for an upset here, it would be by Cannonier KO. Maybe he catches Israel Adesanya, but if you look at a lot of Cannonier's knockdowns, it's been when his opponents are coming at him, and Israel Adesanya just doesn't come at his opponents. He just stands out of range, feinting and leg kicking at range, and it's difficult to deal with if you're a guy like Jared Cannonier, because I don't think he moves forward too well. He's not like a guy who can charge forward like Whittaker can and like sort of bolt into the pocket and stick a jab out there and then shimmy backwards afterwards. Like Whittaker's got that kind of springy footwork style that's going to be difficult for Israel Adesanya to deal with, because he can just sort of like bolt in, jab, move out, skip in, skip out, skip in again and land a right hand and then duck out the other side. Cannonier doesn't really have that style. If anything, he's kind of like a counter-striking power puncher. He sits on the outside, he throws leg kicks, he tries to find his way in here and there, but usually it'll be when his opponent throws, he'll try and beat him to a punch, or catch him with a check hook and put him down like he did against Kelvin Gastelum. I mean, he can come forward cruising and bruising, but when he did that against Derek Brunson, he got dropped by Derek Brunson. Dropped in the stand-up by Derek Brunson. Okay? So, I'm not picking Jared Cannonier to win. I don't think you logically can. Is there good value on it because he shouldn't be that big of an underdog? Yes, likely. But, yeah, I can't pick him to win this one. I think Israel Adesanya is just going to be too much for him. He's going to leg kick Jared Cannonier at range. To be fair, Cannonier did out leg kick Robert Whittaker, but Whittaker was able to jab him in the face over and over and over again. And that was with Whittaker with a reach disadvantage. I know that Whittaker was able to out-jab Israel Adesanya for 5 straight rounds, but Israel Adesanya's got a very long reach. He'll be able to use that range on Jared Cannonier, and Cannonier's been outranged at distance by guys that are like lesser rangy than him. You know what I'm saying? They're not as rangy as him, and they're still managing to pick at him from distance and make that work as a game plan at times. And I just feel as though Israel Adesanya's got a nice matchup for himself here. And the way Israel Adesanya's talking does make me worry a little bit. So I think there's a lot of mental breakdowns that we can do as to why you would maybe go with Cannonier as an underdog, but I don't think, like, logically on paper, if both guys show up at peak form, Cannonier can get one over on Israel Adesanya. Even if Cannonier wins a minor, like, margin decision, they're just going to give it to Israel Adesanya anyway. Like, they gave him 49-46 against Whittaker. They gave him the 5th round against Romero. Like they tried to, on commentary, make it seem like Adesanya versus Blachowicz was close and Izzy might have a chance of winning the first 3. Like, they're really chucking out all the stops. Like, commentary bias, strike total on screen bias, the scorecards at the end. Like, they're trying everything to keep Israel Adesanya as champ. So even if you think Cannonier might be able to outpoint him to a decision, if you're a betting man, that's not really a trustworthy way of going about things, because just beating Israel Adesanya by decision is not enough. You got to do more. You got to really clearly beat him, because they really want him as champ, and they don't want 38-year-old Jared Cannonier as champ. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. He's 38, he's old, he does this in between every single sentence of an interview ever. Every single interview he does. Every single one. You can't listen to him talk. In all honesty, is he a cool guy? Yes, Jared Cannonier is a cool guy. He seems very nice. He doesn't really step out of line with anything. Like, he's just a nice, humble guy. But he's very dull and very difficult to listen to, especially when you're trying to eat dinner whilst watching some of these interviews that he has. Because I'm telling you, it's every sentence, at the end of his sentence, he just goes... every single time, and it's just so disgusting to listen to. Can't imagine having him as champ, and the UFC is not going to want that either, so he needs to get a KO. I don't see him getting a KO, and I think if he goes out there trying to get a KO, he's going to lose, and this is where we get to the mental side of things. Maybe Israel Adesanya is going to try and go too hard on Cannonier and try and have a really exciting fight, because I don't know if you guys have seen some comment sections, and I know people say don't listen to the comment sections, but people that leave comments are just humans with opinions. Like, they're humans, you know what I'm saying? Like, fair play, they can have some silly takes that make no sense because they don't pay attention to the sport. But if you look at his comments, I think he made a video where he was talking to someone backstage on ESPN and talking about how he's going to show off and really go out there to kill against Jared Cannonier, and people can say this, but I'm going to go out there and do this and really take it to him and all that. And it's kind of like feeling empty at this point, because every single fight he stays at range, like extends his hand out and then like leg kicks at range for 5 rounds. And people in the comments are saying that, and I think he's noticing it. He's a social media savvy guy. He's bound to see these comments. I bet he does check the comments. I know people like to do the Brendan Schaub thing of like, I don't see the comments. But they do. Everyone checks comments. It's just like, it's good, like, report. Like, it's a good, like, review of what you're doing. Like, people, just because they don't like you doesn't mean they're wrong. They just have an opinion. You know what I'm saying? So, he does check the comments. And every comment when he tries to talk up about his skill and what he's going to do to Cannonier is just like leg kicks at range for 5 rounds. Cool, leg kicks at range. And you know he's seeing that. And that's why I feel like in this build-up, he's been like, I'm not even a champ, forget the belt. I'm just going to go after him and get him out of there and show off out there. I'm just going to try out new techniques in the middle of the fight. I think he's going a little bit overboard to, like, counteract the narrative that is built around him being a boring fighter. And that's where he could be in danger. That's where he really could be in danger in this fight. If he lets all of that get to him and doesn't do the classic game plan of like staying way out of range and feinting and leg kicking like a style bender of striking styles, I think that maybe he could be in trouble. Like if he goes after Cannonier, dude, you could get cracked and put out. That's not a good game plan. But I do believe that Israel Adesanya is going to ignore all of that and he's going to resort to his initial game plan, which will be to stay at range, extend his fingers out, and throw leg kicks at range against Jared Cannonier. Cannonier does have a good ability to check them, but Israel Adesanya throws so few of them per the amount of feints that he throws that it's very difficult to check them, because most people don't even feint leg kicks. They just throw leg kicks at range. And sometimes you can check those leg kicks and make something happen. But with Cannonier, I feel like he's going to be second-guessing. His reflexes aren't going to be the same at 38 years of age. The longer time goes on is not better for his career. He doesn't really have too much power, really. I'll be honest. I mean, listen, I think Israel Adesanya has a better chin than people give him credit for. Like, he's got a good chin. He took big shots off Jan Blachowicz. He took big shots over at kickboxing. I mean, he's only been KO'd once with the amount of kickboxing fights that he has and the amount of pro fights in general that he has. I mean, Gastelum caught him with a head kick. Who could have saw that coming? And it rocked him quite badly. So, like, you don't expect a head kick from Gastelum. He probably didn't even think he was going to get hit by anything. And then all of a sudden, 5'2" Gastelum's got his foot up by your head. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So he didn't see that coming. Got rocked by that. But he's got a good chin. And I feel like people don't give him credit for that. So I think if Cannonier does land a few good shots, it's probably going to be okay. I think Adesanya can take him because, again, Cannonier couldn't finish Gastelum. Dropped him, fair enough, but couldn't finish him. And then he couldn't, and that was on short notice as well, and Izzy did better to try and finish him, and I think Izzy's so much better from that Gastelum fight as well. And Cannonier hit Whittaker a bunch of times, wobbled him once in the third round, but then Whittaker's just returned to normal and was somewhat okay and clinched up and survived it. It's not like if he just hits you, it's over. You know? Don't let him touch you once. It's over if he does. Like, they're not heavyweights. Like, if this isn't Ngannou against Israel Adesanya, like, I think that, like, if he catches him, it's over, is kind of overplayed. Israel's got a good chin. Underrated chin, I would say, as well. He doesn't cut a lot of weight. It's not like he drains himself to depletion to make 185. So I feel like he's going to be very hydrated. A good chin. I think he's got good energy around him with Volk in the gym as well. I just hope he doesn't, like, I hope his ego doesn't take over trying to be seen as an exciting fighter when he's not. And, like, force excitement, because that's where he could get caught. So I do believe there's going to be a rare finish in this fight for Israel Adesanya, and I believe it's going to be after 3 rounds of leg kicking at range. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I know. Maybe some head kicks on the forearms of Cannonier, which I believe is another big factor, because Cannonier, of course, has shattered his forearms before in his career. When Whittaker kicked his forearms, he shattered them in that fight badly. So if you're Israel Adesanya, you're kind of more open to kicking some forearms, to be honest with you, because they're likely going to crack again if they've cracked once. It's not like he got a steel rod put in there or anything, like he had to wait for the bone to heal. He was out for a very long time after that Whittaker fight trying to recover. And he's an older guy, so these bones aren't going to recover the same way. And it's hard to recondition something that you're trying to heal from as well, because you're worried you're going to break it again. So I think Izzy's going to be okay to throw some body kicks, throw some head kicks as well, hit the arms a little bit, bruise up the arms, pin them to Cannonier's body so he can't really counter as much, chop the legs at range for 3 rounds, 15 strikes a round of leg kicks. Cannonier comes forward now and again and the crowd goes, oh, oh, and all that, but nothing really happens. Izzy moves out of the way. Maybe Cannonier answers with a few leg kicks, but other than that, round 4, Cannonier has a mindset that no others are going to have against Israel Adesanya, and that is that he's going to go for broke. I mentioned this in a comment I put somewhere. Marvin Vettori is 27 in that Israel Adesanya fight. He's so young, which is crazy. He's so young. I mean, I know Izzy is like, you think Izzy would be the young guy, but he's like 33, I believe, or 32 now. So he's getting up there. Like, he's older than Whittaker. Like, Marvin Vettori's like 27. I think now he's 28 or something like that. Like, he's a very young guy. And when he was fighting Israel Adesanya, he was extremely young as well. So I feel like he had in his mind, if I lose a close decision and don't quite do enough, I always have the opportunity to sort of just like backtrack, make it 5 rounds, delude myself into thinking that I've won, and then just sort of have another chance down the line. And for Whittaker, he kind of thought he was winning that matchup. I think Romero kind of thought he was winning that fight as well, because if you look at the scoring criteria, he landed the most effective shot in round 2. He was the only guy who landed an effective shot in round 1, and he landed more in round 5 and more effectively. So again, I think Romero, although people give him criticism for that game plan, assumed he was winning as well, which is why he didn't really go for it. But again, close fight that maybe could go the opponent's way. They give it to Izzy with a 49-46 scorecard. Same with the Whittaker fight as well. He thought he was winning according to the scoring criteria that he was trying to think of in his head. Like, well, I've done this. I've out-effectively landed him. I've took him down, but they gave it to Israel Adesanya. And I think Cannonier is going to have the mindset of, I ain't got time to try and play the scorecard game. Okay, I've seen 2 close fights with Izzy's career that could have gone the other way go to him anyway with a massive scorecard difference of 49-46. I'm not going to play the game where I let this go to a decision. So if he's down 3 rounds, I think his coaches and him are going to think to themselves, We got to go for broke, and I think if he goes for broke, he gets dropped. He tried going for it against Brunson and got dropped. I think Izzy will find that counter as well. So if Cannonier's out there, being 48 years of age, 38 years of age, sorry, I'm really changing these numbers up. 38 years of age, he's probably never going to get a title shot again if he loses this one. He's going to have to start right back at the bottom of the pile, win 3 in a row to justify a rematch, or 2 in a row against really good names, maybe even redeem a loss over Whittaker, which is tough to do because, again, Whittaker's still a young guy in that division, so he's going to be improving even still in his career at this point. So Cannonier's going to be thinking to himself, forget all that outpoint by decision thing. I'm not going to do that against the superstar of the UFC. I'm just going to, if I'm down 3 rounds, go for broke. It's my only chance. I might not get this chance again. And I think he's going to be desperate in the 4th and get TKO'd in the 4th with a check hook. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Israel Adesanya, boring leg kicks for 3 rounds, weakening Jared Cannonier. Cannonier gets desperate, goes for broke in round 4 and gets check hook put down and rocked. And Israel Adesanya finishes him by TKO. See you later.